And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I find it hard to tell you, I find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is Sundown Week, the darker side of dark, basically. But you know, it's we're focusing in on specific things where we can shed some light, and hopefully we can help each other out.
Yeah,
basically,
I
is the
agree.
idea.
Yeah.
So there you are.
This one's Five Finger Death Punch. Remember everything.
Okay. Remember everything from the album American Capitalist. Holy moly. Okay. Remember everything. Five Finger Death Punch. Let's go.
Dear mother, I love you. I'm sorry, I wasn't good enough. Dear father, forgive me. 'Cause in your eyes, I just never added up. In my heart, I know I failed you. But you left me here alone. If I could hold back the rain, would you numb the pain? 'Cause I remember everything. If I could help you forget, would you take my regrets? 'Cause I remember brother, just don't hate me for never standing by you or being by your side. Dear sister, please don't blame me. I only did what I thought was truly right. It's a long and lonely road when you know you walk alone. If I could hold back the rain, would you numb the pain? 'Cause I remember everything. If I could help you forget, would you
Yikes.
Pulling up the lyrics. That's tough.
That's a big thing, man. Trying to measure up to your parents. And trying to get
Their
that.
expectations of you.
Yeah, you're trying to get that affirmation. Because father hunger, I think, was the name.
Yeah.
Or some phrase that was, you know. You know, being a parent is such a crazy job.
Oh, God.
You know, it's a really, really difficult job. And if you don't... Yeah.
And you can't, the thing is, you can't take your cues from the kids because they're like sometimes you can, but a lot of times they're like, they're so ungrateful, you know what I mean? That it's like, it doesn't matter how much time you spend or things you do, it's not, you know, it's not enough. And there's always the, you know, they'll say, this one's the golden child, that one's the golden child, you know. Really, basically, it's just the kid that's getting into the least amount of shit. You know, whoever's been, then they're like, well, they're the golden child. It's like, well, they're just not getting in trouble because they're not doing things to get in trouble, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's not about, we love one of them more, it's just that, you know, they don't have to be, you know,
Well,
they don't have to be grounded from their iPad.
We don't use that phraseology.
No, the kids do.
They
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking at the video, the official video here, which would have surely been blocked. This, you know, there's a guy who's got some military background. I guess the dude from Five Finger Death Punch was originally in the military. So, you know, he's always shouting those guys out. But, yeah, I mean, you know, you were really the first time I saw, like, the effect of not having the, you know, affirmation of your parent, how it can affect you. Because there's a specific incident that happened when I was 11 years old, and I said to I remember clear as day saying to myself, okay, I'm never going to care about what this person says about me ever again, good or bad. Because I was like, there's always going to be some way to move the goalpost. And I don't know if they were doing it on purpose or whatever, which most people don't do a lot of things on purpose. But, man, I just said, okay. And I just came up with my own sort of set of goals. And if I hit those goals, then great. And if I didn't, then great. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah, and you've adopted that into...
yeah, I take that into everything. But you know, I would watch you and, you know... you know, like how you are with your dad and not getting that almost ever, which of course I'm sure if I talked to him he'd say, no, I did this and that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a hard thing between parents and kids because yeah, scripture says honor your father and mother, and then it specifically tells fathers not to provoke their children to wrath. And that's a really interesting. It doesn't say don't provoke them to despair, don't provoke, it says to wrath, because that's human nature. A kid's going to convert that into anger because he's got to use that to survive in that situation. If he's sad all the time, you know, he's not going to get anywhere with it. I think, you know, people generally convert sadness into anger because it, you know, it feels like a more powerful emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But it's a tough thing when you're like, I don't think a lot of people are able to do what you did at 11 and carry that on the rest of their lives. You know, I'll go through phases where I'm like, okay, I'm just not even gonna care, but I do. I still care. You know. You know, I heard that apparently they found out that we do this YouTube channel, and you know, a couple people were talking about it negatively, and I wanted to like literally not care. But it hurt me, you know? Like, it's weird to think that your family, like, sits around and gossips about you. Like, that's weird. You know, like your dad. It's just weird. Like, and then I'll try to picture, like, you doing that to Zoe, and I'm like, that's so weird. Like, that's not very nice at all.
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, it is what it is. I mean, I knew that when he found out about it, he was not going to think this channel was a good thing. I grew up in a Christian home, and it was, very strict and stuff, so listening to metal music is not good.
Yeah.
But, I'm happy with what we do, and, I do wish my father could see what we're doing and celebrate it, but, that's just one of many examples of how I've disappointed him. But yeah, it's tough. Like, I'm holding him crying right now because I don't want to cry about it. But this person is a little bit worse, because it seems like they feel like they failed their entire family.
Yeah, he talks about
mom, the dad, the sister, the brother. I think the brother.
For never standing by you or being by your side. That's a crazy line. That must have been at home then, basically. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's some abuse going on.
Well, that's so funny because I got out of that he left.
Uh-huh.
He left. Maybe he was the oldest and he left the situation. Just don't hate me for never standing by you or being by your side. Dear sister, please don't blame me. I only did what I thought was truly right. And it's just, I was trying to get out of the situation.
Well, I agree. There's probably some of that in there. The reason I went with, that he hadn't left yet is because he said never. So he's saying, I never protected you or never stood by your side. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which is really interesting. Like one of the... my older brother pretty much didn't have a childhood at all, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Because he, I don't know, probably 10, 11 years old, kind of stepped into the role of being a man.
Yeah.
And kind of keeping the house together and all that. And, he definitely did his time. Around 18 or 19, he got caught up in this church group. At the time, I felt like he was abandoning me and all this. But he had to get out. Mm-hmm. For his own mental health, he had to get out. He had put in his time, sacrificed his childhood, and he's a young guy, 19, 20 years old. He had to go out there,
Yep.
and we never thought about him and his mental well-being or anything like that. It was just because we never talked about that stuff, growing up anyway. But it was just he just had these kinds of expectations on him that he basically, we'd be in a homeless shelter. He'd do school, B+ student. He would do school, go, he found himself a job at CVS. He'd work all day, he'd close, and then he'd end up at home and bring us, Jelly Bellies and stuff. And he didn't spend any of that money himself. He stacked up the money to get us out of the shelter. He was 17, 18 years old,
Mm-hmm.
So he finally, and there were so many cycles between my stepdad and my mom. I'm leaving, I'm coming back, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. So many crazy situations, and he finally was like, yo, I found a group of people, they love him, they were giving him guidance, he didn't have to play the leader role all the time, and, he went there, and, I had a big conflict with that for years, because it was like, my brother would get in the middle of shit. Times when, me and my mother had some serious wars, and I remember one specific time where I saw her coming towards me, and I was like, this is not good. You know what I'm saying? Because and sure enough, he got in the middle of it, and he absorbed, a couple, and she's like, don't you ever, you're not the parent. He's like, I know, Mom, but you're not gonna do that with him. You're just not gonna do that. I'm just not gonna let you do it. Mm-hmm. Sorry. So he was, that's who he was. So when he left, it was like, I'm here by myself, and she's not, but again, as a kid, you're thinking like a 14-year-old. As an adult now, I'm like, she had her own mental health issues to deal with, and I was pushing the button. And I'm not blaming myself, because I was just being myself. Mm-hmm. Be that as it may, I was pushing those buttons, and I refused to not push them, because I felt like I wasn't going to be held hostage, you know what I'm saying, in my own house. So there was just a lot of this, and I would never, and he would come and be like, why can't you just surrender the point here, right? And I refused to do it. And then I would hear him talking, and she refused. So he's like, man, like, what's he supposed to do? You know?
I know.
Obviously, I'm saying that now, but back then it wasn't like that. It was like, yo, this dude just straight up abandoned me. He found this new church. He found his new brothers, and he was trying to get rid of me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that wasn't what he was doing.
Right.
But, you know, so that line was crazy. I remember, you know, like it brought, you know, all that back to, you know, the forefront, you know. But it was weird because my older brother, it's interesting because like the first verses are like me, right? Like I'm never good enough, blah, blah, blah. And then like the second verse is my older brother, don't hate me for this, you know, I gotta go. It's a long and lonely road when you know you walk alone.
Yeah.
And I never factored in how lonely my brother must have been. You know, regular 15 and 16-year-olds, they're taking girls out and doing all this. They're not like trying to convince family members not to kill themselves. I mean, I remember being in a room and then hearing him like pleading with, you know, with my mom not to do herself in. He's a 10th grader. You know what I'm saying? It's just really, really crazy shit. Really, really crazy shit that, you know, he had to deal with, and nobody ever really... Nobody checked up on him, you know what I'm saying? Nobody...
Yeah, it's so weird because...
He was by himself.
You're the conscientious one now, you know what I mean? Like, asking people, hey, how are you doing? How are you holding out? You know what I mean? And you're the one that kind of gets the overlooked thing. Yeah. So it's weird to think that there was a time where you were like... you were the one that was just like... not conscious of how he was feeling or what he was going through and stuff like that. Like, I understand you were a child.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just hard to kind of, like, piece that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it's all I knew. You know what I'm saying? He was in a role immediately. Yeah. You know? And when we first came to this country, and the white kids are following us home, call us nigger, blah, 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 and my mom said, you know, I said, what's a nigger? What are these fools talking about? She's like, yeah, that's what they say next time. She basically said, next time you see him, fuck him up. It's like, okay. So sure enough, me and my brother, they call us, you know, call names, and we just turn around, look at each other, and you know what I'm saying? Like, Did
it stop them?
Yeah. That stopped it. Yeah. There's some white lady that came out, was like, stop talking, I want to call the police, blah, blah, blah. It's like 9, 10 of them, and there's 2 of us, you know what I mean? But I was, you know, we were like 6 and 8 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't some big giant.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a rumble or anything like that. You know, we were just kids. But, yeah. So shout out to my big brother. You know, like it's a hard thing to deal with. Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. Like, as far as, you know, from a kid's perspective, it just seemed like your mother was like, wow, look at this woman. But then, like, when you become an adult and you look at the situation and you realize what things that what pressures she was under, and, you know, that's...
100%.
There were some major things going on.
And obviously, you know, like, it's a crazy... Because as a parent, you have to have standards for your kids, right? Like, you can't be a bully. Right? Like, you can't steal... work ethic, do your chores. There's got to be a standard that you give to kids because your job is to work yourself out of a job as a parent. So I know you're a black man in America, you better have a crazy work ethic or you're screwed. You know? So it was just like, you have to have these standards, but at the same time, like, you have to show them that unconditional love and acceptance, and that is not an easy thing to balance out as a parent, especially when you have to repeat yourself 4,000 times and you're having the same conversation at 14 as you did at 12, and it's literally the same discussion and the same, you know, back and forth. It can lead to that type of frustration to where if the kid makes any sort of minimal type change, it doesn't get celebrated as much as it should. So then the kid interprets it as, oh, okay, I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough for my dad because when I screw up, you know, he's all over me. But then when I do something good, he's got nothing to say. And then the dad is looking at it like, what are you talking about? I have this conversation with you for 2 years, and then you did one little thing here, and now you want me to shower down. So it is not as easy as people think that it is, you know. And look, if I believed only positive affirmation for our kid was in its best interest, then great, I would do it. But he's not going to be living with me forever. And those people are not gonna.
No, they're not gonna celebrate him every turn.
They're not gonna celebrate him and overlook and look for shit to celebrate. Like they're gonna, you know. So it's a very, very hard thing. And obviously, as a Christian, you just pray to God that you don't screw up. Worse, you know what I'm saying? Than you were afraid that you're going to, because it's a hard thing. You can really damage these kids.
I think the other thing too is having so many children that, like, sometimes I'm like. I come upstairs and I'm like, oh, shoot, all I did was say negative things when I went down there. But it's like, you come down, this thing's not done, that thing's over there, this thing's over there. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, it takes so much time to like say, look, I've already told you that when you vacuum the living room, you need to make sure that you vacuum under everything because there's so much stuff underneath everything. Or I've already told you that when you wash the dishes, you need to make sure that you, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, excuse me, like you said, you say these things over and 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 over, and you don't realize how many times you have to repeat yourself until you actually have kids. Like, you think that, wow, those parents repeat themselves a lot. But you don't realize that, you know, like, you can do everything and you're trying to teach them and train them and stuff, but you're still going to repeat yourself. And it's so funny because, like, the kids will help us watch Orion, who's only a year and a half. Well, he's 18 months now. But they're like, we already told him a bunch of times that he's not supposed to whatever. I'm like, he's a baby. And this is just the beginning of repeating over and over. You know what I mean? Like, so, like, everybody has, like, a short tolerance for having to repeat themselves.
There is a few situations and phrases, because he says I remember everything. I don't remember everything, but there are a couple that it's so crazy because words take about 4 seconds to say.
I know.
And you can create so much elapsed time in the mind of a person.
Yes.
With 4 seconds worth of horrible language.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically where I was, what the conversation was, a whole 9 yards. They didn't think I was there. And that was the thing that really made it a big deal for me. It's like they didn't know I was listening. So, like, this is what they legit believe, and they were telling somebody else, you know, your brother's gonna be a blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, so that stayed with me, man. That's
Yep.
You know, it kind of put a.
I was gonna say, did it become a motivator?
Yeah. It kind of put a chip on my shoulder, and I was like, all right, cool. You know, we'll see. You know, and so, like, yeah. But that's the thing. You know, he says in the outro, it went by so fast, and that's the crazy part about parenting. Like, I'm sitting next to Dorian yesterday. He's in his little suit and all that, and he's going for it, and it's like, wow. Like, I remember holding you, bro. Now you're out there, like, doing this shit and debating and Trump and Twitter and you know, Ben Shapiro. And I'm like, yo, like, this is so crazy. Like, look at that. It just flew by, you know, and it's something that as a parent you got to understand. Like, if you have that short time period, you gotta prepare them for a very harsh, horrifically terrible, mean-spirited world, or B, you know, completely spoil them and then let them get devoured when they go outside of your house, which is, to me, a lot of selfish parents do that. You know, they're constantly affirming the kids so that they don't have to have the drawn-out conversation and all the rest of it, and see the kid eye roll them and say that they hate you. So you're going to go and just tell them everything they want to hear, so that you can have a wonderful, Oedipal relationship with your kid, and everything's all hunky-dory, and then he goes outside and he gets completely annihilated. I see it all the time. I contract somebody to work for me or whatever, and you know, they can't hack. Like, but I could tell, like, who's gotten that training and who hasn't. But you have to be careful, because you're going to communicate to your kid that nothing is good enough. And if you do that, man, it's a painful feeling. And you know, you're going to remember that shit. Unfortunately, when your dad said something randomly nice to you, that's not what stays in your memory bank. What stays in your memory bank is, you know, the horrible And it's the overarching body of work. And that's one of the things that I try to think about as a parent. I'm like, okay, I'm going to screw up, whatever. But hopefully when the kids look back, they can see the body of work of my dad was that I was loved unconditionally. You know, it was really cool. Yesterday there was, you know, doing the election live stream, and there's all this, you know, jihad, and me and him are going at it with a debate, and voices are raised or whatever. And then, you know, after we got off the point, you know, like I gave him a kiss, he gave me a kiss, and, you know, whatever. I'm like, and people were like, whoa, I love to see that, you know, that type of thing. So, and I think that's kind of the balance, right? Like, he knows, he didn't doubt for a second that I loved him unconditionally, even though he was spouting Ben Shapiro talking points and all this. Like, you know, I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro, I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson. He knows it. But and I'm obviously not a fan of his positions, but he felt confident enough to give it right back and, you know, yell right back and, you know, say that I'm committing this logical fallacy. And at the end of it, like, you know, we hugged and kissed, and like, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to me that he felt that secure to do that. And, you know, so.
Yeah, I think the difficult part is, like, I think you're right. I'm sure that my father had said positive things to me over the years.
Yeah.
But I always felt like I had to work so hard for those.
Right.
And then there's other things where I'm like, are you serious? Like, I worked so hard, but you're not happy with me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I went through this and that thing, and then you're not happy with me. Like, that's a hard, you know, it's a hard feeling, because it's like, well, some things are more taxing on you as a person than other things. You know, I can mow the entire lawn and get a compliment from you for doing that, but I've been through things in my life that are much more difficult than mowing the lawn, and you're not proud of me. So that's kind of like the, you know, hard thing, but it is what it is, I guess. I think we just say that to make us feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, as a Christian, he's talking about forgiveness and his regrets and stuff. Like, that's really been a major area where my Christianity has really helped me. You know, because right before my mom died, like, God was like, you need to go talk to your mom. And I knew halfway into the conversation, I knew it was over. I knew I was never going to speak to her again. I knew it. And, you know, I said what I had to say. I forgive you. I apologize, blah, blah, blah. She said the same to me. She's like, okay, I can die happy now. But my mom was always about dying since she was 30. And I hung up the phone. I remember texting you. I remember saying, like, yeah, I'm never going to speak to you. Like, it's over. And sure enough, a couple months later, she was dead. So
I was like, well, maybe this is just me being pessimistic, and maybe he's wrong. And then I prayed. I'm like, Lord, please let him be wrong.
It was a good moment. It was a good moment because we were able to kind of squash the beef and acknowledge our own wrongness to each other and all that. And so, you know, I was very glad that God led me to make that call, and glad that I listened. Because usually when he tells me to do something I don't like to do, I'm like, no, not doing it. So good song. Tough listen, but good song. What do you give it?
What's another high one? 9.89.
It's a 9.2 for me. Very, very good song. That guy
I
can
love
sing.
Five Finger.
Yeah, it's like
punch.
the fourth or fifth one of them, and they're always pretty good. That vocalist is crazy. He knows how to use his talent. There you are, dear listener. Moral of the story is, for most of us, our parents really do love us deep down. And when you yourself become a parent, you have the opportunity to learn from those mistakes. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.
Never standing by you or being by your side. Dear sister, please don't blame me. I only did what I thought was true. Dear mother, I love you. I'm sorry I wasn't